After the start of World War I, Crown Prince Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was conscripted to the German army when he was in his mid-20s. He received a short letter in the mail by courier. It said, "Dear Crown Prince Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern, we are writing to inform you officially that you have been conscripted to the German military. Your participation is compulsory. Please report for basic training with the German army at," etc. They gave him 72 hours, approximately, to make his first contact with the German army conscription office. Under German law, he had the right to dispute the conscription for obvious reasons. National constitutional monarchy duties being the main one he could have used. With the fact he was the only possible next monarch with no eligible children. Adolf was the end of the Hohenzollern royal family line at the time. My Hohenzollern royal family had a history of military participation in some ways. So, he let Kaiser Wilhelm II know, who started crying. Packed his bags and went to join the army. Contrary to popular rumor at the time, he was not trying to commit service suicide, including for being homosexual, by attending for basic training. The protest to his conscription may not have been successful, but was never submitted. He ended up having a reasonable time at basic training, fully aware he was going into combat. He met a few close friends in the military, including a part French web, or 3, related to me. Crown Prince Adolf served in the German army in the trenches on the Western Front during World War I, and was highly respected, but not comfortable with any form of promotion offered. The German army was very blunt, and regretted everything afterwards. Crown Prince Adolf extreme left, encircled. Crown Prince Adolf ended up being seriously wounded on the Western Front during full trench warfare. And I mean the fully gruesome type. It is one of those things in history. Germans have never officially fought against Australians in a wartime combat scenario, and it annoys some of them. When the word Anzac was mentioned in relation to combat against German troops, only New Zealanders were in those battles. No Australians. Rumours that the German troops could hear familiar Australian accents when all was quiet, but never fought any Australians, are true. I will not try to explain how heroic Crown Prince Adolf was, along with his closest friends during World War I. But he was good for the term heroic as far as that sort of thing goes in context. Crown Prince Adolf was involved in from trench reconnaissance rescue missions in the trench network, involving a large number of attempts to assist other personnel who had been wounded but couldn't make it back to safe ground. It was very risky, and he was very successful at it. His uncle and second predecessor Kaiser Friedrich Hohenzollern IV died during 1916 in Gippsland, whilst Crown Prince Adolf was in combat on the Western Front. Adolf was likely not informed of it directly at all. Shortly afterwards, Crown Prince Adolf was extremely seriously wounded with a rudimentary machine gun during a rescue mission. The precursor to the modern automated version, it fired slender bullets akin to thick nails in short bursts at the intended target. He was very seriously wounded in the torso, lungs, hip, and upper quadricep on one side of his body, with a short and brutal burst of machine gun fire. It was sprayed at him from an angle, with most of the bullets missing to his left or right, including some that left scarring marks as they passed him, but did not impact him. He was hit 4 times, twice through the exact same part of his body. Crown Prince Adolf had a well-worn and used rope around his waist that led back to a wounded friend in a trench, tied around his waist as well. A large man with curly hair when it grew, particularly at the front, who was sitting on padding-like mattresses that lined the floor and wall of the trench at the base in case anyone wanted to suddenly drop in. The rope could not be seen as it was covered in the muck and debris on the ground outside the trench, as if camouflaged. Crown Prince Adolf was lying face down, holding a metal object he kneaded tightly in his hand, breathing through a bullet hole in his lung, also wounded in the hip and upper quad. He laid there for a prolonged period in excruciating pain, unable to move. He was approached by a small bunch of men who had a quick look at him and thought he was dead or was certain to die. They had a short conversation in a language he didn't understand, whilst he laid there as still as possible. They decided he was dead, or soon would be, and very gently stole his boots off his feet, slipping them off quietly and walking away with them. They decided not to do a kill shot, and left him there as they found him, without boots. When all was quiet again, he felt a tugging motion on the rope around his waist and tried to get back to the trench. It was an excruciating brutal process of working backwards, feet first, using his arms, with punctured lungs, over the debris on the field, in between barbed wire and wooden obstacles, following the tugging on the rope. When he made progress, he tugged on the rope and waited for a tug on it back. He inched his way backwards, over an excruciatingly long time frame, until his feet went over the edge. Then he tipped over and fell down onto the mattresses lining the bottom of the trench, with a bizarrely soft landing. When he got himself upright on his back and sat up a little, the friend next to him turned and said, "Where have you been?" To be blunt, that man looked like me. It happens a lot, and isn't all that weird. Webbs and other related to me were around him constantly all his life, and he was born in Gippsland. When they were found, they were both seriously wounded. They were evacuated to a nearby triage emergency area, where they both had to have emergency on-the-spot surgery. A surgeon that performed emergency surgery on Crown Prince Adolf had to literally push his arm inside Adolf, grab his heart, and squeeze it with his hand to keep it pumping due to loss of blood, whilst performing the surgery. They were both then further evacuated to a field hospital for more surgery. Crown Prince Adolf and his friend were then eventually returned to inner Germany to a recovery hospital. After the physical process to get Crown Prince Adolf back towards good health was completed over months, enough for him to move more freely, they transferred him to one of those post-traumatic stress disorder recovery hospitals, full of men wounded in similar ways. He was one of the early victims of what was to become the machine gun, one of the early casualties of the new weapon. He was bedridden, couldn't get up, and couldn't talk. The German army awarded him 2 Combat German Iron Cross and looked horrified when they did. He could barely stand up because of the wounds to his side. They pinned them on his chest, patted him on the shoulder, did the full ceremony in front of the other patients, and apologized profusely repeatedly that the medals only had Crown Prince Adolf Hitler engraved on them because there wasn't enough room to add the Hohenzollern. The highest-ranked German army man there for the presentation started crying and walked away. Crown Prince Adolf was set down. He was given a photograph frame-like stand to hang the medals from, so he could put them on the side drawers next to his bed, and they carefully placed them there for him. Crown Prince Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was then dismissed or discharged on medical grounds from the German military and awarded the Medical Discharge Iron Cross. He was told he could provide it as proof he never had to serve in the military again. He was a complete wreck mentally. He could barely say more than a few words at a time, stuttered, and could suddenly lose concentration and just stare without blinking, panting very slowly. Eyes wide shut is the expression. What happened to him was on the extreme end of excruciatingly painful. He spent well over a year in the trauma recovery hospital and was unresponsive to any visitors, regardless of who they were. He wouldn't have remembered them well. He gradually recovered to the point where he could hold a conversation for 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Any longer and he would phase out and go back to a blurry stare, then forget the whole conversation. He had daily physiotherapy on his wounded side to help him stand on his own and eventually learn to walk again. Crown Prince Adolf swore off the military. He did not want to be directly involved in any way. He eventually recovered enough to go on what was called outings to try to reintegrate him into a future daily peacetime life. They were not planned well and he was soon reassessed. When he had recovered enough to tolerate 10-minute conversations, they let him leave the hospital occasionally, telling him he could come back if he needed more rest. He stated he thought he needed more time in recovery and he could barely walk with the assistance of walking aids.